Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to the one, the only Hawg Talk podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe in Buzz Radio networks, where you can hear us on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I am Porter Hayes, and alongside me is Adam Hall, and we're also brought to you by Bet Online, where you can get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, NFL, NBA, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games, available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Adam, we start with, we had one, again, it seemed like, when the Duke game come around, everybody was talking about the hiring of Bobby Petrino, and that kind of took over that game.
Mm-hmm.
Now game day comes. Kentucky's in the house. Game day's here. Moments before the game, it come out reports that Devontae Davis has stepped away from the team per release, and that just kind of took away from the news. Arkansas played well, fell short, but just what was your initial thoughts when you had seen that for the second time he just decided to step away?
This time around was obviously a little bit different than the first time around. I think, the second time within a year, I looked at it more like, all right, I don't think there's coming back from this. It was, I was kind of caught off guard. And then if you think about it, it's kind of like maybe, there's been stuff going on because he doesn't seem like he's been completely here since, on different games and whatnot. But, whatever the case may be, I was shocked by it, but, especially hour before, tip off of one of the biggest games of the season, in Bud Walton Arena, in a season that you're trying to salvage. It was, it was a shock. And I hate using the word, or phrase, I was tired of it, but I did get tired of hearing about it during the game also, because it took away from the game.
Well, and that was, very, what Jay Billis was saying was very unprofessional on his part. You're supposed to be reporting on the game, talk about the game, and then if you want to throw a side piece on there about, Devo, what he did for the program or what he was for the team, but to sit there and even mention AWOL, that's just tone deaf. That's how I took that part of it. But it shocked me because, during off season, he was, posting so many IG pictures of in the gym, 11, 12 o'clock at night, in the gym. He was ready to come back. He wanted to come back and make a statement. But then now looking at it, it's like, he comes back to try to, make it a better name for himself and to, prove that, hey, I want to get this team to a Final Four. I want to come back and I want to be a better defender, a leader. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, but you nailed it. It's just something off. And then, after the game, Coach Musselman, when asked about it, was very private about it. Very, did not want to, and I don't blame him, but this is what he had to say after the game.
Evo stepped away. Does that mean he's left the team permanently?
I'm just going to stick with Mike's thing. Thank you, Bob.
Is the door open for him to come back?
I'm just going to stick with Mike's thing. I appreciate the job you got, and that's what it is.
Okay.
Very, very quick. Very, and that just tells you. And look, whatever it comes out to be, or whatever we hear, in a sense, it doesn't matter anymore because he's stepped away from the team. It's their business. It's in-house. It's none of our business.
Mm-hmm.
The only part when it stops at us as fans and content creators is he's no longer part of the team. We can try to fish, or you can try to, but in reality it's none of our business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to take away from several hot topics or whatever going around, but like I said, it's not our business. There's a lot of things that comes out in media, whether it's a release by a coach or the school or whatever, and a lot of times they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I know everybody has the questions, and a lot of times they'll put something out just to end the conversations. But at the same time, they don't have to inform anybody of anything. They let us know that he's no longer with the program or he stepped away from the program, however they want to word it. And that could be all they say on it. Now, I know eventually something's going to come out of who, what, when, where, why, or whether it's from Devo or the school or whatever the case may be. But, there's still part of a season that this team needs to try to make the best of.
Yeah, and they showed some effort. They showed. I mean, it's weird how we talk about when you look at the football and you want to compare it. When you play Kentucky, it's like playing LSU in football. You're always going to play up to Kentucky coming into no matter 10-10, 1-6 in the SEC. 500 overall, but they played Kentucky like they were an Elite Eight type team. You were without Trevin Brazile, you're without, of course, Devo, and you still hung within 4 points from them. It's the fact that your biggest flaw is your perimeter defense. You let Reed Shepherd go off for 14 points. Antonio Reeves goes off for 24. It's still the perimeter. And you have no inside presence. I mean, Mitchell's doing amazing. He's 8 for 10 from the free throw line. But when you're shooting 9 for 31 in the first half, but Kentucky did the same thing. I mean, you got lucked out in the first half that Kentucky shot so poorly.
I think that they started 1 for 15 or 1 for 19. I mean, we caught the break there.
Yeah.
And then it was one of those things in the second half when it was tie ball game, Kentucky up 1, then going back and forth with the lead changes. And you're like, okay, you get that uncomfortable feeling, but it was right around when, Kentucky goes up 6, that it's just kind of like, here we go.
And I want to ask, your opinion on it. When the last 2 games, it seems like in the second half, teams are just shooting way better on, you're getting better shots off. I don't understand why there's not you're not making adjustments. I mean, Kentucky shot 7-11 from the 3-point line in the second half. I mean, that right there is the difference maker.
Well, it may not so much be full on adjustments is that their shots were falling because they had several wide open shots in the first half that they just weren't hitting, or maybe not wide open shots, but not very contested shots. And they missed a lot from the rim. Putbacks, offensive rebound, putback again, missed, there's 2 or 3 possessions that they just could not get the ball in the hole. But we couldn't capitalize to get that lead out to, the first half when we were up 10 and then it dwindled down. We could never really get that momentum. And I mean, I applaud the fans especially in the first half, as loud as they were, it was like, okay, we've got to keep this up the entire game. But, it's hard to.
Yeah, it is. And that is, we've talked about that. When that you're the underdog, if you have that momentum, you got to keep that momentum going, because once you let Kentucky back in the game, or once you let the other team back in, they take the momentum away from you, especially in your home gym. You're already fighting an uphill battle being the underdog. Then you're playing at home and you're giving Kentucky, and like we talked about last week, Kentucky's one of the teams. They're not afraid to come into Bud Walton Arena and take a game from you. They played in Kansas. They played against Gonzagas. They played against the Dukes. That's the one team. And plus, they've always played well against Arkansas and Fayetteville. And this right here proves it.
Yeah, looking back at the stat sheet, there were a few points last night that I was watching and I felt like, Mark was trying to do too much, or Ellis was here and there. But then it was kind of like, well, who else is going to try? Because there was points that we were just dribbling around, not really passing the ball. It was just one guy dribbling, which the commentators made a couple, pointed out a few times, or, getting down into late shot clock shots that were just throwing something up. And it was just, I get they were trying to create something, but they got away from the ball movement in the second half that you saw early in the first half.
Well, you made a perfect point. When guys are having to feel like they're having to do everything, when you got your guards scoring 11 and 11, I mean, you need to have those guys 10 more points because you're struggling to get to 60 in SEC play. And when you got guys in a battle that scores 11, Traymond Mark scores 11, you've got to get at least one of those guys to score 20. If you're going to win in the SEC, you've got to all around, or you got to have a couple more guys like Graham step up and give you 12 to 15. Ellis come up. I mean, you've got to have more production from somebody, or you got to have two of those guys step up and be a Note, be a Joe, be a Mason Jones, somebody that comes in and is a dog. And we have that's the point we've been talking about all season long, that is the missing link with this team. They finally showed some effort, but they just couldn't score. And I'm sorry, I don't know if you're playing at home and, you're shooting in practice and shooting rep after rep and playing in these games. And I don't know if it's a conditioning thing. I don't know if their legs, your rhythm, mental, but with the fact that, you see with Devo stepping away, it shows that something was going on internally, especially how Coach Musselman was talking. You just nip it in the butt. Like, hey, we're not going to talk about it. So the mental aspect of what's going on internally, because all it takes is one situation, whatever it may be, to spread amongst the locker room, because that's a smaller locker room than a football locker room, and we'll see how the team moves forward. But it's almost like, all right, they gave a valiant effort in this game. Let's see how they go next game. But with nothing really to play for, I don't see how this team starts performing better moving forward.
No, I mean, it's something that, the season's basically, and I don't want to say done because you never know what's going to happen in the SEC tournament, but history says it's not going to go in our favor, but that's their only chance to, at this point, make any postseason whatsoever. It's one of those things that the guys that are here, they need to decide, what am I going to do in the now to prepare my own personal athletic future, whether that's transferring out, whether that's going overseas, whatever the case may be. Because, I see a lot of comments and talk about, like, guys give up, they don't care, they this, they that. And I look at it and I'm like, so I don't understand why a guy that has such limited amount of time to prove himself to be able to play at the next level, why would he just say, screw it, I'm done, and completely ruin whatever chance he has or had?
Yeah, and that's the tough spot. Like, is this person really going to be able to go overseas? Is this person, you see how a person performs in a couple of games or how they are as a defender, but when you talk about going overseas or going professional or making it to the league, that's a huge commitment, one. And and two, the gameplay. I mean, we look at the guys that have, really done well in the G League, and they'll crack the NBA, but then they're right back in the G League, or they just never can find their footing to get in the rotation. It's hard. It's very hard but then again, you go to the G League and you're balling out, scoring 20 points a game. You're going overseas and making really good money, but you're overseas. You're away from everybody. You try to find you a little home out there and then get with your teammates. But sometimes it's just like a overseas travel AAU league.
Yeah, because if you look at the guys that, came from Arkansas and are have done well or are doing well overseas, they're guys that we look back that they were those dogs for Arkansas that we've talked about so much. Daryl Makin's had a great career overseas. Jalen Tate's having a great career overseas. Obviously, Sonny Weems is still going at it after 16 years over in China. I mean, it's one of those things that Mason Jones now overseas. So it's one of those things that these guys that were, this is how we looked at them. The G League didn't work out. The NBA didn't work out. So they just, took their talent elsewhere. I mean, I know Dusty Hannes is the newest one to go overseas, or one of the newest ones to go overseas, because it wasn't clicking in the G League. He was scoring 15 to 20, but there wasn't that spot for him really at the next level in the NBA. And now we're looking at with Jordan Walsh and Ricky Council and Stanley Amude and Audice Tony, it's, they're putting up the 15, 20, 25 a game in the G League, and then they'll get those few minutes here and there every 2 to 3 weeks up in the NBA, and they don't get into the game because they're not in the rotation.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're playing good enough to be in the league, but you're not playing enough to take the guy's spot, because you look at a lot of these positions, the guys that you're trying to take their spot, it's not a role player. You're taking somebody as a potential all-star. You're been in the starting rotation for years, and you're coming in trying to, like I said, not necessarily say that you're better than him, but the person above you is better, and they've been in that rotation for a while. So you've got to wow them, and it's a lot of grind. I mean, I keep on going to Moses Moody. He's been the one. I mean, Jalen Williams has done really good with Oklahoma, but we talked about last week, you were talking about maybe they might be moving him. And if you're settling yourself and you're trying to get in the rotation, but yet how the league is, especially during that trade deadline, moving pieces around to try to build for the future, it's a business. So it's almost like the transfer portal and NIL. You're trying to think about, am I going to be traded? If I get in, that mindset of, well, I can't go in and mess up because I don't want to get traded or get benched when I finally do get in the rotation.
And you hope that, while we talked about with them being so close in Oklahoma City, you just hope that they find somewhere that they can shine. I mean, early on in their careers, Daniel Gafford and Bobby Portis both shuffled around teams for their first few years. Both of them in Chicago, both of them in Washington. Daniel Gafford's now there. Bobby finally finding his place in Milwaukee. And it's one of those that I would rather see Jalen shipped off where Isaiah shipped off where Moses shipped off somewhere, that they have a chance to show up and show out than be stuck on a bench that we're sitting here like, dang, he only played for 6 minutes tonight.
Yeah. And Bobby Portis, he's one of the most, you got Giannis there and he's right below him, and in popularity, and you don't want to make him mad. We've seen
the Little Rock comes out whenever somebody comes after one of his teammates.
Exactly. And you got to have that. It's almost like acceptance of, okay, and trust, like, all right, what may be will be, because it takes sometimes 6, 7, 8 years to, we talk about, Brandon Allen so much when we're talking about just being that journeyman and being that bench player and being that backup. He's living the great life, and he still is in the league. And that's what's crazy. You talk about guys like Sonny Weems being overseas. He was at UFAS, 04, 05, 06. And then he played for the Razorbacks. And then Brandon Allen, he was what, 16, 15, 16? Was that when he played for Arkansas?
Yeah.
Around that era, and that's almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. And Sonny, coming from a national champion UFAS team and the NJCAA then, making his time at at Arkansas, and then he played for 3 or 4 teams in the NBA before it was just like, okay, I'm going to go do my thing overseas. Because I think he hopped around from Toronto, Phoenix, a couple other teams in between that time. But then it worked out for him overseas. And as much as the country of China loves basketball, he saw what it was, saw what he do, and saw what he could get paid, and he took it and ran with it.
I think, that whole thing, how they were treating him as well, that kind of pushed him out. That what he was dealing with over there. And that's the thing, talk about the mental part of it and how you get treated and what we don't see, because not many people are paying that much attention to, unless you're in the Arkansas circle, how guys are going. But when you've seen how he was treated and what he went through, it's devastating to see
Mhm.
that, because you're away from your own country. You're in a foreign land trying to make your way, trying to make money. And it's almost like you're in a job where you're stuck and then you get mistreated and you're just like, you feel like
Mhm.
you're spinning in the mud. What am I going to do now? What am I going to do? But yeah, I had a chance to see him, because he does a lot of stuff with Team Arkansas TBT, and just man, he's a really amazing dude. And you just look at this team, and that's what they're lacking. They're just lacking one guy on this team that, all right, they're going to the league.
Mhm.
They're going pro. That's the difference between being a good team in the SEC to where we're seeing now. There's just not that person that, where are we going to get drafted or second round? There's nobody on this team. And I think people need to cut the program some slack, because we all were forgetting, yes, it's okay to be frustrated, but we got to remember that, man, everybody's allowed one bad year. Now if this keeps on sliding down towards, we start having more and more years like this, then yes, it's starting to raise some alarms. But we know this season's done kind of as a successful year. Just make the best of it. Keep showing out and showing up for the team. And hopefully next year, they get a new crew in, some guys coming from the high school ranks to really bring back this program. But it's shocking, all one, because you're not used to this out of the basketball program. And two, you're coming off a brutal stretch of football season. All of it's just made it worse.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were, looking forward to the basketball season after the football season, and there's a little bit added hype, a little bit added wants from another, Sweet 16, Elite 8, whatever. And then we didn't get it. We're not getting it, and so that's just like made things, amplified even more.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. After the break, we're going to talk some. I know a lot of people around here, big Chiefs fans and Taylor Swift fans, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I know you do not want to mention that, and I know you're probably tired about that, but we'll also break down what's going on in the other game. Lions are currently up 21-7 on the 49ers. We'll talk about that, and then I had a chance to talk with Cabo, gave me some insights on the baseball scrimmage over the weekend, what some things to look forward to, some takeaways from the scrimmages that happened over the weekend, and we'll catch you after the break. Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Spring. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to get the results you deserve. Contact the law office of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingssoap.com www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company. And want to welcome you back to the Hawg Talk podcast. And we're currently watching the Lions take on the 49ers in the battle of a couple of pro Hogs. Lions are currently up 21-7 in almost halftime, minute 50 left in halftime. I know the first game didn't really go too well for your side. I won't dig on it too much or anything like that, but I know now you're a Swiftie.
No, that's never going to happen. I think Chiefs fans can even probably, or a lot of them can get behind that they're just tired of seeing it on TV or, every 5 seconds, it seems like they're cutting the camera to it. But that's what happens when you get a celebrity at that status, dating a player. It is what it is. I mean, Chiefs were the better team today. Baltimore got away from, what they've done all season. They got away from their run game. It was one of those things that early on I was uneasy feeling. And honestly, about 6 minutes left in the third, I was like, this is done. I didn't see it in them. And I know Baltimore still made a game of it, but, it was personally, I felt like that they were checked out in about the third quarter.
And they were making some like that play that when we were talking during the first part of the game where he broke off that run in the middle, and just kind of was looking at the linebacker. I was like, well, if he had the speed to run, I was like, man, if he would just kept going, he'd have scored. And then the very next play, he just got out of that scramble and threw an amazing pass. Then there was things in the first half that were like, man, Baltimore can win this game because, the tip pass to himself was like, just these little things that was going on. But, yeah, the second half was just you can tell almost like when you're watching a game and you're not there at the game, you're not in the environment, but you can just feel like it's just not going their way. The momentum was just not swinging for them. And to be honest, I mean, the offensive side of the ball for the Chiefs wasn't really that impressive because, anytime Baltimore was bringing pressure, they were getting holding calls. And, they had their chances to really kind of put this thing away. But, Baltimore kicked the field goal at 17-10 and, come down to the, getting the ball back and just Chiefs end up getting the ball running out the clock. But you know who Detroit has, though, to counter the Taylor Swift talk.
Oh, yeah. Swift versus Eminem.
I mean, that's going to be one of those deals where it's going to take Slim Shady to come in. And I think, he's I think he's going to be the kryptonite. I think it's going to be interesting to watch how that plays out. I know that's starting to pick up some steam on the social media world, but but you love it. I mean, I root for teams like the Lions. Somebody just never win. They haven't won anything in a very long time. I mean, they haven't really been a good program or a franchise since Barry Sanders. So now that they're able to, looks like, again, we're not even at halftime yet, but if they go on to the Super Bowl, that's who I'll be rooting for. Just a underdog kind of team, like when the Royals was winning in the baseball and getting the World Series, the Cubs, teams that don't ever hardly win, getting that win. It's kind of good to see them get back to the Super Bowl and have their fans to have something to be happy.
Yeah. And, and I get that. And, out of the teams that are left, obviously I think the Lions would be the best story out of it all. There's a couple of teams that I don't care if they never win another playoff game, which would be Dallas and Cleveland, just coming from the AFC North. The Browns can keep being terrible for all I care. And then, the longer we prolong Dallas getting any further in the playoffs, the funnier it becomes. So.
Well, they're going to kill. Yeah, that's the thing. And I've said that and I've stood by it. Look, their owner is the one that has kept them from winning because he don't care about winning. Jerry Jones cares about himself and him being the number one brand. And that's the thing. Look, as long as people keep making them the most popular brand in all of professional sports, he don't care what the outcome of these games are because he's making money. And until that stops. Now, I'm telling you, you take his money away from him or you start declining where he's now a top 10 franchise instead of the top. I bet that will wake him up. But I don't see this team going back. We kind of touched on it last week about how long it takes to really build a program, and I don't see anybody buying into Dallas and signing 1-year deals to make that a Super Bowl contender. But they keep on plugging them as a Super Bowl contender. And our 2X co-hosts, good friends of the show, Kyle and Cabo. Cabo's a Packers fan and Kyle's a Dallas fan. Well, I think they're like 1-9 now. I think in the last 10 games they've played Dallas against Green Bay. I mean, so it's hard for me to, people keep on tabbing Dallas as this wonderful program when you're 1-9 against the teams that you're always keeping you from getting. And then you're dealing with Philly. You're playing in one of the easiest conferences in the NFC or NFL. And they're like Gonzaga. They're like Notre Dame. They always get to the playoffs or get there, but then they always peter out in the end.
Yeah, with Dallas, it's going to have to really, if they want to move forward, Jerry Jones has to remove himself as general manager.
Exactly.
But he's still living in the glory days, and his ego is not going to allow him to do that. I look at something like, there was the talk of would Belichick go to Dallas, and I saw where it was coming from. But at the same time, you've got a guy that was the GM and coach in New England. He's not going to come somewhere that he's going to be told what to do or told how to run his team. So, Jerry Jones has always wanted a yes man as a coach, and that's why they kept Mike McCarthy for another year.
And if anybody has anything to say about the state of the Dallas Cowboys program, it's this guy right here.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you,
we don't care. Jerry.
I always love that clip. He always loves giving Skip and all the Cowboys fans a hard time. It's hilarious watching him. But yeah, I think we're in for a good Super Bowl. I think, it's going to be entertaining, whichever team comes out, the Chiefs versus the Lions or 49ers. But we're going to touch on some baseball. Like I said, talk Cabo. He was talking about, just some takeaways from the scrimmage. I know they have another one tomorrow, but when you have 8 different players hitting home runs, your pitching depth has been everything that has been built. And your pitching, you only had 4 walks and just a few errors. And for your very first weekend scrimmage, your very first where you're really coming in and playing in January, mind you, having guys really be able to crush the ball, bullpen. And when I say crush the ball, they're going over 105, 107 off the bat. That's crazy when you're talking about and it ended up being perfect weather. I know in a month when they start, it's probably going to be 32 and 10 mile per hour wind. It always happens for, when start of the baseball season. But this is what we're really looking forward to. Same kind of questions that the softball team has with pitching. I really feel that if this pitching staff is as deep and they stay as healthy, they have the chance to really make a run at Omaha.
We always talk about, the staying healthy, and it always just seems like there's a pitcher or two that always end up going down early. We obviously hope that doesn't happen. I've seen several, comments, opinions on like after the game, was it yesterday or Friday, whenever it was, and then let's see, whenever the last time when they had the fall World Series, when it was the Cardinal versus Gray or Cardinal versus White, whatever it was, and there were some 9 to 8 games, 9 to 7 games, and there were a lot of comments that people were questioning our pitching in these games, and I'm like, it's January. Let's chill out with it. And it's also guys just going against each other in a practice and a scrimmage. I get that they want to win, but there's a long ways ahead of us. I've kind of heard a different tone, if that's right, from Dave Van Horn and some of his media. I know, like, I've got a quote here from just a few days ago. He said that there's not a lot of ego going on with our staff. It's all about let's win what is in front of us today, and let's try to get to the big dance at the end of the year and do some damage. And you've always kind of got that sense he worries about who's in front of him, but you don't really hear him come out and say it. but it's just kind of like a different attitude, a different way that they're going into the season.
Well, I think he got lax for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, you know, and it happens to the best of us. We're talking about the baseball program getting complacent. You have all these new facilities. You got the #1 recruiting class coming in. You have all this stuff that looks good. When we had Cabo on, you know, we're talking about what does that really even mean? You have the #1 freshman class because they get slotted in the major league, the baseball draft, or they go to another school. You know, you have all this stuff that if there's any harder sport to get kids on campus, it's baseball. You know, because they're taking kids to the pros out of high school, and then you're dealing with, you know, pitching depth and portal, NIL, you know, and of course the scholarship and how that plays into, I think 11.7, how that plays, you know, how that plays into your program. And again, when you see all this nice stuff in the facilities, top notch, and you know, then the pitching coach and the hitting coach is getting, you know, slammed on social media if they start losing some games. But look, these kids wouldn't keep coming to this program. They wouldn't be building these facilities if this program wasn't top notch. They're not getting it done in Omaha, but I'm telling you, there was a coach down in Florida State, one of the best of all time. He never won a World Series, and he was there 40 something years. I mean, it's so hard to win. You know, you're coming out of your own regional where you got to beat one of the teams twice, or you know, then you got to go to super regional where you got to beat the team 2 out of 3, whether you're hosting or you're traveling. Then you go to Omaha with 8 other teams that are top 5 programs. You got to try to go in there, get out of pool play, and then get to the championship series where you got to beat that team 2 out of 3. It's very difficult. I mean, and then deal with the fact that you don't have your starting pitcher out there every time like you do in football, basketball. You know, it's hard. That's where it's very important to have pitching depth. And Cabo said it looks like, you know, they have it this year. So I'm really looking forward to this because I've said it and said it. That they need baseball to be successful this year.
When we see, you know, the high schoolers, the transfers that do come in from baseball, these kids, these recruits, they see that, you know, Arkansas is one of, if not the top colleges that puts players in the MLB. I think we currently have one of the top schools, like I said, if not the top of the most players that come from the University of Arkansas. So that's something that they're watching and they're looking at. And I think now, you know, as much as there's hate, as much as there's the trash talk on NILs and such, if you want to see some programs that could benefit from NIL more than anything, it would be baseball, because you only have the 11.7 scholarships. So these guys are here paying for it themselves or on academics. So you want to keep these kids coming here, or whatever the case may be, throw them NIL money, you know, so that they're not going to the minors for however many years, farm leagues, making, you know, $20,000, $30,000, whatever it is, you know, when they could come play college ball and be in the spotlight and get paid to do it.
Yeah. There's 61 guys on the roster that I just looked at, and you got 11.7 scholarships to divide from that.
Yeah.
I've never understood it because I think this is this the only sport that there's really that kind of restriction on your scholarships?
I'm not sure about softball, but I know it's the most talked about. That it's because coaches have been fighting for years how they, you know, need to do the scholarships, and I know they've even fought for years how they do their assistant coaches too. You know, Arkansas is one of the few programs I know though that actually have made a profit when it comes to baseball, and that
I think there's 3 programs in the country. I believe it's Arkansas, LSU, maybe Mississippi State now, or some. I think there was, but this was a couple years back. There was only like 3 or 4. But you're looking at how many D1 schools there are.
Oh yeah,
there's only 3 of them in the green. So I mean, I know that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you just gotta. I mean, but as much money as, you know, the other sports, especially football, obviously, that pull in. I feel like there's got to be an adjustment somewhere, because it's one of those things that these kids, while a lot do come from, let's just say a higher income level than others, doesn't mean that they should be punished for that, or, oh, well, you come from a to-do family, so you just need to pay to go. I mean, it's just one of those that I feel like that's what's driven kids away from going to college in baseball, because you had the opportunity just to go to the minors and start making money. But now, with NILs, start paying the kids to come here. Just to, I mean, it gives them a better light, in my opinion. The camera in front of them being on, the College World Series than it is in 2 to 3 different farm leagues for however many years.
Well, you look at the pros, you look at the minor leagues, look at how many people from Latin America are in the pros. How many kids are sitting there in Cuba and the Dominican Republic and, Japan, these kids that are starting to come over to the major leagues are playing over in Japan. They're playing in the Dominican. They don't go to college. That's part of it. That's been a big talking point. I think if there was more scholarships to offer and you had more ability to go out, just think what it would do for these kids, though. You think, look, minor league baseball is no easy task. I was in Springdale, was talking to one of the guys. He was playing against the Naturals, and he was sitting in a hotel, and they had a 6-game stand, like back-to-back days, 6 days, and 6 games in 8 days or something. And they're living in hotels and riding buses. It's not glamorous. And the hopes of maybe getting called up to the major leagues. Because, I mean, it is lucrative once you get to the major leagues. You get the $100 million contracts, but the grind it takes. And how many of these kids that could get robbed of, man, what could have been if I could have went to a college like Arkansas to develop my skills, and kids are going up through the ranks not knowing what spin rate is or a pitch count, or it's really know how to work the plate, and they could really take advantage of going to these programs. They just don't have the resources.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I'm excited to see, which we've talked about, with the Fort Smith Marshals coming in, just to see the other, because we have the minor leagues, with the Northwest Arkansas Naturals, but these summer leagues are more for the college players getting ready for the pros, professional development that we see. The players after their college season's done, they go from May or June to August, September playing in whatever city. But they're those, I think I looked in that Fort Smith Marshals, they're playing 63 games over the course of the end of May to August.
And what will we know who they're going to be playing against? Kind of what league? Do you know that type?
Yeah, they're their own. They're in. I forget how many teams there are, but there's teams that are. This is a brand new league in itself. So there's teams in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. I've only seen about 6 or 7 official teams. I expect there's going to be 8 to 10, but they're just going to be playing each other. Now, I'm not going to say that they're not going to maybe pull them to play another minor league team, if you will, just for practice, for fun, whatever it may be. But as far as I know, they're just going to be competing against those different types of college or professional development leagues.
Yeah, and that's like, the Royals are coming down to play the Naturals. So, I think that's really cool too. And I just found out the other day that the AAA team that was in Oklahoma City, they're no longer affiliated with the Dodgers. So you have these affiliations with these major league teams, and that can change. So another thing to when you're used to having these farm leagues and somebody buys you out, you don't know what team. You go to the Oklahoma City Dodgers now. Who are they going to be affiliated with? But season gets started on February 16th with James Madison. Again, we're talking about these 4 or 5 game sets with a 4-game set Friday through Monday. So that will get us lined out with baseball. Again, hopefully, we're the savior. Again, not to put too much pressure, but, it's time to really, unless the basketball team just starts turning things around, and this is no dig on the softball team, the women's basketball team, soccer team, track and field team, which all those are doing great. But when it talks about, the popularity, the the revenue generating sports, we know with the buzz, and all that does is bleed over into those programs. We've seen it the past couple of years. Now we're seeing what happens when the football and basketball programs not doing so well, and how it is probably affecting the popularity and people going to see the other events, because they're not driving up to Fayetteville to go watch the basketball games, other than when Kentucky comes to town. And it affects the overall mood of fans, and not being able to wait till baseball season. And then you got a big turnaround until football season.
Yeah, I was thinking about it last night and today a little bit. You hate to see programs that are doing well, like the women's basketball team. I know that we had higher hopes of them where they're at currently, but they still have, plenty of season ahead of them to make more of a push than they've already made. You just wish you could get more fans in the stands to see them. And if there's, so much irritation or concerns with not, their people are just done with the men's team or the football team or the whatever, then it's, get out and go support other sports. Don't be done with everybody just because of you have a bad taste in your mouth from two programs.
Yeah, women's are currently sitting at 16-6, 4-3 in conference. Big win at Missouri today on the road. Sailor Poffenbarger, 8 for 9 from the 3-point line today. I mean, without Talia Scott, and just had to play LSU coming off a 98-68 loss to them. Then you turn around and beat Kentucky at Missouri. Then you have Alabama, Auburn at Florida, Tennessee, Missouri. So you're not having to play LSU and South Carolina back to back. That really kind of set the downfall of the season last year. So hopefully they're starting to get things turned around, because we know, 500 and above in the SEC is going to get you an NCAA tournament bid. And talking about getting people in the stands, and look, for me, more than probably anybody other than the ones that are sitting on the front row and heavy supporters of this program, want people in the stands. But we also know that you're going to have to win in postseason play. You're going to have to get people to believe in you, that you're going to produce postseason, or it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. You look at Iowa, you look at South Carolina, you look at LSU. Well, they're winning national championships and they're going deep in the playoffs, and they got Caitlin Clark. So Talia Scott could be that for Arkansas. But it also comes down to the success. You have to have success. You have to put together a winning program to get people in the stands, because, we've seen it with Chelsea Dungy, Alexis Tolfree, Amber Ramirez. We've seen what the program could be. But that postseason is just lacking, and I hate it, but that's just the real world. Yeah. And when you buy into the program and then they lose by 30 or 40, everybody's quick to jump off. It's just, hey, look, I'm going to give them a chance. Let's see how they are this year. And then if they don't produce, they're just going right back to the other sports, man. It's just, and that's how it always will be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things that going into, I think they've got Alabama next coming to Bud Walton. So, they went to Alabama's home however many weeks ago and beat them soundly. So Alabama's going to be coming for revenge. So that's something that after these 2 wins against Kentucky and now Missouri, they don't need to take the gas off or the pedal off, whatever. Yeah, foot off the gas.
Exactly.
Because they've still got things to play for.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Hawg Talk podcast, brought to you by Bet Online, Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, and Arkansas Brewing Company. We'll be live one day this week, depending on how the schedule plays out. But look for us on social media. We'll put that out there on when we're going to come back, talk about the possible Super Bowl matchup and what else is going on in the land of Razorback sports. But we'll catch you one day this week.